Smiley, the first FedEx Cup playoff event is in the books, and Lucas Glover, he just went back to back. This is his second consecutive week he's won a tour event after, I believe the last one he won before that was the John Deere in 2021. And before that, his last win I think was the Wells Fargo in 2011. So Lucas Glover's on a verifiable hot streak right now. He beats Patrick Cantlay in a playoff, and we are going to get into all that. We're going to break all that down, but we'd be remiss to not start with the headline that you and I both shared via text, which is, what in the world was going on with Lucas Glover's pants? Like, what in the name of swamp ass was happening there? I have so many questions. Like, it boggles my mind. And I play in Durham, North Carolina, which is like the swamp ass capital of the world. High humidity these times. I will not play in anything other than performance material pants. I can't imagine there are people out there still playing in khakis. So I just like, okay, first of all, give me your take on what was happening there. And are you a performance material guy? Like, what are the RLX pants made out of that you wear?
Well, I mean, you have to hang those pants up in the swamp ass Hall of Fame. It was, I think whenever he finished the round today, go in the locker room, take a nice cold shower, instead of throwing those things in the trash, which is probably what he was going to have to do. I think the club should think about framing those pair of pants and putting them in the players' locker room. What a sight to see how those things are going to crinkle up as they're going to be full of salt like next year. I mean, it was crazy.
How do we embalm those?
Back.
Like, how do we preserve the sweat stains? Like, that is, I think, what we need to make sure happens for that.
Why is Memphis always the hottest place in the world? It just, every single hole, Lucas, I know he doesn't use a glove, which is just honestly the most insane thing in the world with how hot it was out in Memphis today. And he's, sticking his hands in every single ice cooler, which is a smart move. I would do that on tour a ton to try to cool my hands off to keep them from sweating. But pro move, sticking them in there, because those are not easy finishing holes. He was coming down the stretch playing.
So I was interested about that. Like, I didn't know what I guess the sweat thing is the most obvious one, the one that makes the most sense. I was curious if it was like a swelling thing, because you're kind of, it's all sweat related there. Sticking hands in an ice bucket. Yeah.
And it just, what it does to it cools your body off. This is the most simple thing. Yeah, you're sticking your hand in an ice bucket. It's going to cool you off. But yes, there's something about, someone had told me that, I don't know if it was actually true or not, but if you keep your wrist in there for a certain amount of seconds, it does something to lower your heart rate or something to where it cools your body off. I took that as fact, and I didn't question it, and I really didn't even present that great of an argument. It sounds cool, right?
if it's on the internet or if someone told you it has to be real. Don't even need to fact check it.
I would always do it. I can imagine those ice coolers were kind of gross by the end of the week. All the guys sticking their hands in there.
Yeah, that's probably, thankfully it's probably just like closed water bottles or Gatorade bottles in there. It's like, I would not want to be pulling something else out of there after everyone's hands have been rummaging around in there. Okay, but so you're dodging the question here, Smiley. Talk to me about the performance material or not performance material that is on your golf pants. Like, did you wear like cotton pants when you played on tour?
I only did it one time. It was the last time I ever did it, and there were these really cool blue checkered pants, and I wore them in DC at Congressional. It was the last year they had the PGA Tour event in Congressional. I was playing with JT and Ricky. They paired us together, and talk about another place that can get really hot.
Yep.
Washington DC. If they got the temperature thermostat turned up there, it can be just insanely humid and hot. And so I wore these checkered pants, and they looked great.
I'm looking at them right now. I found them on Getty. These are sick.
That fast? Wow, thank you.
They're and you had on some really nice looking like white and tan saddle shoes too.
Oh yeah, no, looked
this
great.
This is a fit, dude.
It was a great fit, but it was a little dark in the back there by legitimately the second hole. We had a situation brewing. I thought they were going to hold up a little better, but I was in the future for situations like that when I knew it was going to be hot. I stuck to the performance material at RLX and never had an issue ever since. they make some incredible stuff. So I never had an issue after that, but man, we were packing some heat back there.
I'm happy to report, Smylie, that as far as I can tell on Getty Images, there is no real evidence of your swamp ass that day, even though I believe you. I think there's maybe one photo on here, but it looks like it's shaded in such a way where you can't really tell if it's the shadows or if you're brewing a little something downstairs. Also played with JT that day, very young looking JT in the Quicken Loans Nationals. So that's fun. Okay, we're gonna have to cook that up on social for everyone out there to see those. That's a good looking outfit. But I don't know how people do it. As someone who sweats like a crazy person, I'm all like Lululemon 4-way stretch performance material. Now the thing is I almost want to kind of rack it back and go back to last week and see what was happening at Sedgefield in Greensboro, because I'm not recalling a swamp ass situation for Lucas when he won the week before. But you'd think that that's another prime place to just, sweat your face off and your pants off, but we didn't really see it last week.
I mean, with all due respect, I'm not looking, unless I have to, unless it's just staring me right in the face, which it was. So, I mean, I don't know if that was just a different material maybe he wore this week and didn't realize it until he got out there. But I guarantee he's not going to wear that same pair of draws again.
Well, preserve them, frame them, hang them up at TPC Southwind.
Frame them, man, at Southwind. Those things they need to be in the Hall of Fame.
Legendary pair of trousers.
I want to. You did ask about just his performance in general. And I want to compliment him on how good of a play he's had the last 2 weeks. And what it kind of reminds me of is that run that Brennan Todd went on. I know this is totally different time of the year, but Brennan Todd was battling some form of yips or, just totally had lost his golf swing and then found it and then just went on this crazy heater. Lucas Glover, we talked, and Amanda Balionis even said in the post round interview and said, if I had told you you'd won 2 events, one being a FedEx Cup playoff event, what would you think? And you said, I would have told you need to hire a therapist. And I just thought that was such a quick-witted response. But man, it's crazy how, and I say it all the time, and people used to tell me all the time how fast in the game of golf that you can get confidence. And it's crazy how fast you can lose it too. And you feel like when you're playing bad that you can never play good again. And when you're playing good, it feels like you can never play bad again. And Lucas is on the top of the roller coaster of that. And he's going to legitimately, I think he's just going to stay on that cruise control and then never drop, because that's the way, just the things he did in the final round. He was 3rd in strokes gained putting in the final round, making 2 putts outside of 20 feet in back-to-back holes where when he hit in the water on 14, and after seeing Cantlay making birdie and Fleetwood and Rory kind of coming down the stretch that are the big dogs, you kind of expect them to chase down Lucas. And he made these insane putts that, when you think of Lucas Glover's game, you don't expect him to make those putts on the back 9. But I tell you what, that putter, it's similar to that jailbird. And they talked about it on the broadcast. A lot of people are going to be ordering that putter, and I think I'm looking at one of them right here.
I was thinking of that as I was putting together this rundown. I'm like, man, I'm just following PGA Tour trends as if that's going to work for me somehow. I'm just give me the flavor of the month as far as the putter goes, and I'll mess around with it and see if it fixes anything. I think it has more to do with what's in between my ears, but I am currently working on getting myself one of those LAB golf broomsticks. And
it's not Lab, it's LAB.
I don't actually know.
Y'all had them on ITR the other day, and you don't know?
We did, and I actually don't know if we said Lab or LAB, because I think it's an acronym that stands for like lie angle balanced.
Yeah, I did hear that in that interview when that guy came on. And now you gotta come get him on ITR again. Well, now.
Don't you worry. I sent him a little congratulatory text, trying to get in good with him. Yeah. So,
did you send him your specs too?
Yeah, I think I'm 45 inches right now, and now we just got to kind of figure out, which head we want to get on it and how kind of, where we want the degree to sit up. But I mean, that's going to be in the bag. That's going to be in the bag soon. I mean,
I will give you this though. I'd given you a ton of grief about how, you're a guy that's a big tinkerer and, you're always changing putters, this and that. I this weekend went to Inverness Golf and Repair here in town, changed my Y angles of all my clubs pretty much, and also ventured my way over to the putting green and sent you a video of me. Obviously, the first putter I grabbed, I made the first 3 putts, and I was like, I got to get out of here. This is not a good situation. And I'll tell anybody, I feel like I can putt good with anything. But after last weekend, I just played so bad. Like nothing felt right in my hands. And that place is like crack cocaine when you go into where I mean, it was the perfect putting surface. And you just feel like when you walk out of there, you're like, you know what? I'm back.
I'm all the way. That's the thing that I love about all these places. Like we know we're getting suckered a little bit into it. We know that they're juicing up the TrackMan numbers and all the clubs you're hitting. Oh wow, you're carrying it 10 yards further, and you know, and you're putting towards holes that all have funnels around them. I'm making everything, but we still, you know, we drink the Kool-Aid, and you're like, this is the fix. This is what I need. And then you get on the golf course, you're like, wait a second, why wasn't it working the same way it was, you know, at the PGA Tour Superstore or the Club Champion or wherever I was going to get fit? And it's like, well, it's because they're set up to get you to buy the clubs, but still we drink the Kool-Aid and we persist, and you gotta love it. I mean, listen, I am a tinkerer. I was glad, like, you know, for all the shame that I was meant to feel for tinkering, I was really glad to see you kind of just slowly migrate over into my world of tinkering, just ever so briefly. So how are we on the lie angles and the loft angles and things of that nature? I got a long video from you that was very technical in the midst of a golf weekend where I may or may not have been several beverages deep. And I was like, this is just a lot to take in right
now. I went and hit balls after I switched the lie angles a little bit, and then I switched them all back. So but I did find a little swing thought that I feel it's kind of an old swing thought. It's crazy how it always ends up being your old swing thoughts are the ones that win over. But hit it pretty good in the little range session. I probably won't touch the clubs for 2 weeks after. I think that this was on Thursday that I hit balls. I didn't touch a club the entire weekend. I went full dad mode the entire weekend compared to you, where you played golf at Diamond Creek and had a lovely time, I'm sure, in nice 70-degree weather, where I pressure washed for 3 to 4 hours in Alabama heat, which was just insane this weekend, and organized. It was like my spring cleaning weekend. Just had a bunch of stuff I needed to get done before football season. I just wanted to have every, you know, we just need to get all settled in to be able to not have to have big projects come September.
I love that. You got to get them out of the way. You know what you have coming up. Like I'm kind of in a run right now where I have like a lot of things that I have to do outside of the house, so I can't do the things inside the house to get ready. Yeah, much to the chagrin of my wife.
You'll be there eventually.
I'll get there soon. It has been strongly suggested that I either rent or purchase a power washer for several products around the house. So I might come to you for some hot tips in that department when we get there.
It's addicting, dude.
I've heard.
Once you get going with the pressure washing, it's the most satisfying thing in the world. It's like having your best range session ever.
Okay. Wow. I can't imagine it's going to feel like that for me, but I'm willing to give it a try. So, just to kind of get back to Lucas and what he did well. And there's, you know, a lot in here to kind of recap from the tournament itself, but kind of going back on the putting thing that we were just talking about there. I mean, we were talking last week, he was 180th in strokes gained putting on tour coming into last week. I don't know how updated these numbers are, but what I'm looking at right now has him moved up to 166th on the season. He's making these huge improvements on a week-to-week basis. Like you said,
third in the FedEx Cup.
Third, I believe he's actually fourth in the FedEx Cup.
Oh, they said that wrong on the telecast then.
Well, let me look at that, because I checked it after projected, and I might have this wrong here too. But
that's just what they said. I'm not sure.
The FedEx Cup is still Rahm, Scheffler, McIlroy. Lucas moved 45 spots up to fourth, and Cantlay moved 8 spots up to fifth. But yeah, I mean, you know, the putting for him, as you mentioned, third in strokes gained putting in the final round, 12th in strokes gained putting for the week. The broomstick has been unbelievable for him. Just completely changed his mindset. You talked about that post round interview with Amanda Renner, you know, where he was just kind of reflecting on what's happened on that par 3 14th hole. The one sort of moment where he gets a little bit shaky and misses right in the water. Then after leaving a wedge short on the drop, he buries a 30-footer to save bogey. which, turned out to be a really pivotal moment for him because, he got into the playoff on the number with 15 under with Cantlay. So, I mean, you talked about, you talked a little bit about just that change in psyche, but I mean, is there anything equivalent to this that you've seen in the game of a guy that's like, hey, I'm going to something different, and almost immediately, I guess he switched to the Memorial, but it's like it's been a couple months and he's won back-to-back tournaments. He's in the Ryder Cup conversation. I mean, this is amazing stuff we're watching right now, and he's hot at the right time. There's no one saying that he couldn't go out and win again next week or the week following, and really kind of force the issue for the Ryder Cup going forward.
Yep. And the plot thickens for Zach Johnson. And yes. I just think it continues to get easier and easier for Luke Donald. I think his team is trending in the right direction. It seems Rory, Fleetwood, Victor Hovland, John Rahm, just those four guys come off the top of the head. I mean, that is a strong four players that are going to be playing for that European side. And when I think of the American side, it seems a bit spotty to me, right? It seems, like Scotty had a great year, and now we kind of see guys playing well in spots. We finally see playoff Patrick Cantlay come around, and he's been kind of lingering the whole year, not necessarily putting himself in position to win a golf tournament. But it's been kind of the last couple of weeks, guys playing their way in. Brian Harmon being a guy, Lucas Glover, like you mentioned, Russell Henley, a guy almost won the Wyndham Championship, finishes T6 again. He keeps putting his name in the conversation as a guy that potentially might be a guy that is a potential pick. It's interesting. And then just to kind of follow up on your point with Lucas Glover, yeah, it kind of goes back to that point, man. He said it best, and I think it was great advice the way he said it in his interview after the round. Whether you're playing good or bad, you just got to keep fighting. And I resented with that so well, just knowing, in this game, you're always working on something. And even when you're playing good, you're just keeping it simple and you're working on the same things. And what it all really comes down to is how confident you are mentally in what you're doing. And it seems right now, Lucas has, when something goes wrong, he's able to rely on his putter and keep the momentum going. And he's just in this frame of mind that he can't be stopped right now.
Yeah, I mean, it remains amazing to say that about Lucas Glover, a guy who's been one of the best ball strikers on tour for a long time, and now his calling card is that putter. So he's in a great position, as we noted, fourth in the FedEx Cup standings now, heading into the second playoff event, the BMW Championship. I can't lay now, as we noted, in fifth, and just curious as to your thoughts as to the way that Cantlay played that playoff hole, that 18th hole. With that really aggressive line he took with that 3-wood, which ultimately leaves him in the water there. I mean, we saw Lucas Glover take a very similar line and carry the water just barely in regulation, still ended up making a par and entering that playoff. But, do you like him taking that aggressive line there and trying to kind of force the issue with a birdie? Or is it like, hey, let's just make sure this thing's dry and try to hit a good approach shot?
Well, I'm going to take you back all the way to the Shriners this past fall when he was head to head going up against Tom Kim, and he pulled 3-wood out on that hole as well and hit this. It wasn't not quite nearly as bad as the same 3-wood he hit. I think he just barely tugged the 3-wood tonight in the playoff, where it's a much more difficult drive, the 18th at Southwind than the 18th at the Shriners, but still you can't miss left. And both times he hit 3-wood, and I don't know if it's the same club, if that's his miss with that club, but we've seen it twice now on the 18th hole, him not be able to put that club in the fairway when he needed it the most, even though he did do it in the playoff, in 18th hole regulation. But still, I mean, you're gonna look back on he's gonna look back on 2 3-woods he's hit this year, and that's probably the reason why he's not in the win column.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny. I actually carry, probably a different version of that same 3-wood. It's a Titleist 915F. It's about 8 years old, and that thing is an absolute rocket. But it is very draw biased, at least in my amateur experience. So
he likes to fade it too.
Yeah, definitely. And it more so than I guess think some of the other stuff I carry in my bag. It's like it really wants to go right to left on you for right-handed players. So, I mean, I think, I mean, he's obviously a far better and more skilled player than I am, but I just think it's interesting with that club that's kind of been the miss and pressure situations, as you noted, not just here, but at the Shriners as well.
It was just fractional, he missed it by 3 yards tonight in the playoff, but I just go back and say like, well, has this happened before? Well, it did in the fall. He was basically perfect the entire week, hardly made not one mistake. And he hit probably a 10 to 15 yard toe ball 3-wood that lost him that tournament. So just something to keep an eye on.
So I want to get back to the Ryder Cup stuff, but just one intriguing kind of storyline coming out of this event as well, because we're now the players that moved on from this event, the top 50 players that are going on to the BMW Championship are the group that is automatically qualified for all of the signature events in the 2024 season, which is a big thing given those elevated purses. And so what's that?
It was a big week.
Yeah. So Hideki Matsuyama shoots a 5 under 65, but the way he did it was by playing his last 4 holes in 4 under to vault himself into that top 50, conversation into the BMW Championship next week. And the reason that's intriguing is because the potential trickle down effects there for the signature events next season. So he entered the week 32nd in the official world golf rankings. And I'm not sure what his fall schedule would have looked like. You got to assume he's going to play the Zozo, because that's in Japan. But there's no real guarantee that would have got him back into the top 30. And that is another piece of qualifying criteria for those signature events next season. So if he doesn't make the top 50, if he's not top 30 in the world entering next season for some of those events, the Fried Egg noted this on Twitter, he likely takes up one of those 4 sponsor exemptions that exist for those signature events. Now, they also said, JT is another guy that could take that exemption. I think JT at 25 in the world, probably safe getting in on world ranking, but that's kind of a big, storyline there. I assume his ranking is going to go up if he doesn't, clear 30 this week. Either way, it doesn't matter because he finished top 50 in the FedEx Cup standings, and so he's in next year. So that's just it's interesting to kind of look at how does what happened this week impact those signature events next season? And that was a big mover. I think in some senses, it's a bummer for Mackenzie Hughes and some of those other guys that narrowly missed. But in another sense, it opens up a sponsor exemption for those events next year.
Yeah, no, when you kind of look at the 50, to me, this FedEx Cup, I really think this is the right number moving forward. 70 to me, just looking at 71 to 125. And now you look from the FedEx Cup from 50 to 70. Really just, I just feel it's the right amount of intrigue with very solid players who've had solid seasons. And typically in the past, being 51st in the FedEx Cup, you're playing, it used to be 4 playoff events, and now it being 3, only getting to play 1 playoff event. That's a lot less money than you were making. But these guys are getting well paid this year. I'm not apologizing for anybody that finished 51st in the FedEx Cup. They're doing just fine. But that goes to say, and any of these guys, just one more week would have given them that opportunity to play their way into those big time events next year, those signature events that everybody's gunning to get into. And just notable misses looking through the players to me that stick out like a sore thumb. I mean, I see Keith Mitchell there. I see a guy like Nick Hardy, who had a very nice season, sitting there at 52. When I kind of look at next year and last year, I kind of made a list of players that I felt, had very nice seasons that I thought were going to make that big jump as far as, being a potential top 10 FedEx Cup player or top 25 player in the world. And last year I said Sahith, which was kind of a no brainer, but I said Davis Riley was another guy, and Cam Davis was the third. And this year, as I kind of look at that list of who's a player that's going to make that jump next year, I think Nick Hardy is going to be a player that makes that jump. And then here's another guy sitting at 65. I look at a guy like Sam Stevens, was super impressed with his game this year. I think he's an extremely solid player. And, and really, I think there's one other guy too. So this is going to be my list, and I think Pearson Coody is going to be the third guy for me. To me, he's got all of the ability. He's won 3 times already on the Korn Ferry Tour, and I don't even know how old he is. He's so young. So that's kind of my like early list of looking into next year as young players that can make that big leap into, something that we saw similar to like Xander Schauffele do, that he was kind of below the radar, but he wins at the Greenbrier. Next thing you know, he's been a household name on the PGA Tour the last, 7 years.
Yeah, and when you kind of mentioned those set of guys, the first thing I think of is like I'm really intrigued to see how that sort of next 10 and swing 5 category plays out, for getting those filling out the field for those signature events. And then as a knock-on effect of that, how are they going to use those for sponsor exemptions? Because, again, looking at some of those dividing lines, JT finishes 71, Adam Scott finishes 72. And Adam Scott is 39 in the world, and I'm not sure what other exemptions he might have to be able to get into those signature events, but I'm sure he's breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief today, seeing Hideki qualify and take his name off the board, as a guy that could take one of those exemptions, because that theoretically frees one up for him. So all interesting stuff, just paying attention to as we.
I mean, JT, Adam Scott, Shane Lowry, those are 3 guys that are going to be getting spots. That I imagine they're going to get spots in just about every one of them. And I think Keith Mitchell will be a guy that's a name that people want into those events. But it's going to be competitive. It's a not a fun time to be an agent, because you're like, how are you not getting me into these fields? And it's 4 guys, and it's the most competitive. You're not going up against like. The players you're going up against, it's just ridiculous, like typically for sponsors exemptions, you can make a really strong case if you're a solid player to be like, what, like I feel pretty good about getting into this event. But how are you going to convince a tournament chairman that, I'm sitting here looking at like Sam Ryder and JJ Spawn, like how are you going to tell them it's like, hey, like I got my guy Sam Ryder, I want to get him in, like he's an unreal player, but how are you going to put him over Adam Scott? It's just going to be so difficult for those guys to get spots unless they qualify in. And I think Sam Ryder's one hell of a player. I would give him a shot, but it's just going to be difficult. They're just going to go after the names for those 4 spots,
Well, like talking about uncomfortable conversations with your agent where you're revisiting how the year went. It's like, hey, maybe you should play a few more of these fall events, because we're going to need to get you in the next 10 category now. I don't know if a sponsor is going to be headed your way. That happens
this fall, huh? So like you can start playing into the next 10 categories. So all of these guys that are 51 to whatever can go play and start working their way into the next 10 category.
That's correct. Yes. That's that.
Man, I don't know how I feel about that. If you're a guy that finished 51st, like
you feel like you should have as a guy that is bad at math, but also the guy who finished 51st. Yeah.
No, just think about it. Like these 50, they're going to play men. Like they're going to play men down. Like if they have 4 guys not able to play in the 50 man field events, they're not adding the 51st, 52nd player. It's not like finishing 51st on the FedEx Cup does you no good. And I disagree with that. I think they should be running off of that list from the prior year. But
I think what they will get is they will carry their points into the fall schedule. So 51 is currently number 1 on the qualifying list.
The next 10.
Yeah. So
I thought it reset. Like I thought they started at 0.
They take their points from now into the fall. And
then that makes sense. That makes sense.
And then they're playing there for like that sort of next.
Sorry, I'm still learning all this.
I mean, and there's a very likely chance that someone.
Wait, so hold on, no. Let's start this over. There's no way they get to take their points in through the fall. Here's my argument. Written. So what about the Korn Ferry guys? They finished their year in the 1st of October. So if you're a guy who's in the top 30 of the Korn Ferry points list, you don't get to play in Napa and you don't get to play in Jackson because the Korn Ferry Tour playoffs is still going on. So how the heck is that fair for those Korn Ferry guys to first not be able to play in any of the first couple fall events? But so I understand from an eligibility standpoint, the fact that 51 doesn't go anywhere. But to me, it would reset at the top of this, after the Tour Championship, to where now those players are all at scratch or all at zero. And so that next 10 category would be rewarding basically who play. It would be like a running New Year FedEx Cup list that doesn't count for anything for your points for this year, but just a general list to get into events next year.
Yeah. So, I mean, and this is where honestly, we probably need someone to
see this the way, are we on the same page, or am I wrong here?
Let's see here. Okay. So here we go. I have the pertinent paragraph right here from the schedule release from whenever it was last week. So as with the upcoming 2023 FedEx Cup Fall, the 2024 FedEx Cup Fall will finalize top 125 eligibility for the next season, providing exempt status for full field events as well as a spot in the players. While players in the top 50 will continue to be eligible for FedEx Cup Fall events, players ranked number 51 and beyond carry over their FedEx Cup points from the regular season and FedEx St. Jude Championship, and will continue to accumulate points through the FedEx Cup Fall toward their eligibility status for 2025. And I think also
so they're not locked in at 51. So Mackenzie Hughes is not locked in at 51.
Well, the way I read that is that he's carrying over his points, and he's now number one on this next list that helps him qualify for. I don't know. I mean,
hold on.
I need a lawyer, man.
That's so dumb. Like that he has to continue to try to hold that position.
But wouldn't you rather have the benefit of being number one on that second list, whether or not you want to play in the fall, than
just think about it. He's at
911
points. Let's say somebody from, I don't know, who didn't even make it to Memphis, wins the first event. They're 51 now. So can he drop out of the top 10 going into the next year?
Sure, but
it'll be close. But you're probably
wouldn't you
right.
rather have the head start? Like, would you?
Oh yeah.
Head start's better than no head start.
1,000%. It makes sense, the fact that he's in a good spot to be in the top 10, but if he doesn't play any of the events, there's no guarantee that he doesn't get past.
But I think that's the whole thing that the tour is trying to create, is like what they're trying to do is, and again, this is just all assumptions based on the way I'm reading this and interpreting this and trying to understand it. And please, somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
You only get an off season if you finish top 50. Is that?
Effectively.
So if you finish top 50, you get an off season.
Well, and I think the whole goal there is for the PGA Tour to be able to go to the sponsors for these fall events and the host sites for these fall events and be like, hey, this used to be a thing that counted for the FedEx Cup the following years. There was like more of a reason to play these events to start getting a head start for the following year. Now we don't like really have that in the same way. So you're going to miss out on a lot of the top names that you might have gotten in past years. But what we do have is there's like a 50 to 70 range of guys that were really good, but narrowly missed out on making it to the second, playoff event. And those guys are now heavily incentivized to play in your events because it means that they could play their way into these high value, high money signature events for the next year if they play well in these fall events. Like that. To me, the way I think that they had to set it up to sell something to those sponsors and events other than, because otherwise you're just like, hey, you guys used to be like the FedEx Cup Fall, just a slightly watered down version of the tour. Now you're like the Corn Ferry Tour, effectively.
But kind of going back to my other point, I mean, how bad does it suck that these top 30 Corn Ferry Tour players can't play the first two events?
I agree with that too. I don't even know how to make sense of where they enter the ecosystem.
Dude. They're at 0 points. And you're telling me they have to catch Mackenzie Hughes at 911 points?
So
how are these Corn Ferry Tour players? They're at such a disadvantage.
Here's how they get in. Here's how they get in. Swing 5. So the swing 5. So the swing 5 is just basically, and so I assume that the events that they can get into. So like for the first signature event that's not the Century is the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, right? So the top FedEx Cup point earners from the Sony Open, the American Express, and the Farmers Insurance Open, those 5 make it into the signature event. So I'd assume that these Corn Ferry Tour guys should be able to get into some, or graduates, I should say, should be able to get into those events. So, play well. If you top 5 in that category, then you get to play your way in. mean, that
It
feels
used
fair
to be
enough, right?
These rookies, I'm telling you, they used to be in a much, much better spot when this fall season was a thing and you could earn points. They're going to be so behind the 8 ball in this, man. I'm telling you, it's a tough situation now.
It is,
because finishing top 50 that'd be ridiculous for any rookie to do. And now with the way that I'm sitting here looking at the list right now to see if there's any rookie that finished top 50. I don't see one.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, I mean, you were correct. Like,
Eric Cole.
Yeah.
Eric Cole's the one guy
Rookie of the year. Yeah. So, I mean, I think, I mean, I agree with you. You're feeding less mouths more, but that's kind of the whole shift that we made in the game to satisfy these guys who, want more money, because if not, they're dissatisfied and they go somewhere else to play, namely live.
Oh, it's just so competitive, man. It's
crazy.
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's just going to be difficult for those guys. And there's so many good players from 50 to, 150. I'm sitting here looking at the list, but you're right, man. They're feeding the big guy's mouth. But to be fair, like, those guys in the top 30 of the FedEx Cup have been there the last however many years. It's the same dudes that finished there because they're really good at golf. So
definitely. Yeah. Well, and I think that, I mean, I still think that even if it is 5 guys, effectively, I mean, like, because the way, and this is even helpful talking this out, like, the way I'm now understanding this is like the next 10 is the guys that have the best chance at making it into the signature events through the next 10 category are, let's call it 51 through 125 on the previous year's points list. At least the start of the year. Exactly. Yeah.
Is that a rolling?
See, that's what I can't figure out is, like, did they then start factoring in 2024 FedEx Cup? Like, do those roll in? Is it like a yearly rolling deal?
Because the guys that
they can't go on forever.
I mean, the guys that play well at the Century, the guys that play well at the beginning of the year are going to be at such a big advantage.
Oh, wait. Okay. You know what? Here we go. Now I got it.
I love that I keep on going on this rant that I'm like, okay, like, I see a loophole and a big problem in this. And you're like, we found something.
To be fair, like, this is a dense list of information they gave us. And this is probably the 10th time I've read it, and I'm still finding new Easter eggs in it. Okay. So AT&T Pro-Am, the next 10 is from the final FedEx Cup fall standings. Okay. The Genesis Invitational, the next 10 is from the final FedEx Cup fall standings. The API, the next 10 is from the current FedEx Cup standings
API
through the Classic and Paul Beaches.
Okay, so first in March.
That's when it flips over.
All right. So, but
that's something. I mean,
but you look at that and you say, the guys, I think that, like Mackenzie Hughes or just any of these guys that we're kind of talking about in the 51, they're at a big advantage. They can go play well and they could play their way into all these. So there's an opportunity to play well.
But that cuts both ways too. It's like you kind of got to play well at the AT&T Pro-Am and the Genesis to kind of give yourself a little bit of a bump in the FedEx Cup standings, because otherwise, you might be kind of sliding down that list, and then by the time you get to the API, it's like, well, none of that stuff from last year helped me at all. If I haven't played well this year, there's going to be. So I guess all roads lead back to the same place, where it is just like, hey, you got to play really good golf, and then things should work out for you.
One of the biggest issues that was happening on the Korn Ferry Tour, tournament directors were selling spots of the 4 spots they give away. So it would always kind of go to the highest bidder if you could promise something to cut down costs, whatever it is, to help make a profit. And that was happening. I don't want to say 75% is a high number, but it seemed like every week you heard about somebody buying a spot for 20 grand. And that's how it was. And they supposedly had cut down on that. But now I'm thinking in my head, are we about to see that same type of behavior happening on the PGA Tour
for the 4 exemptions?
Except it's and it's a guy going to a tournament director and saying, "I'll 15 grand, let me in." 20 grand. Like, just
like, come
give
on,
me a
man.
tee time.
This is a signature event. It's going to need to be a little bit more than that.
Yeah, 50 grand. Like,
50
give me a
grand.
tee time. What does it cost? I'm sitting here.
A blind bidding process.
I'm sitting here thinking. I mean, it probably. I don't see a situation of what tournament would be like. You know what? We might consider your offer of $75,000, but no, I'm just kind of using that as an example of that. No, that's kind of the really, economics of it.
I mean, we're kind of joking around, but within that sort of kind of point or question or topic is, I'm very interested to see how they use those sponsors exemptions, because I think our heads go to the same place first. It's like, who's the biggest marketable superstar that missed out on this thing? But do we think that that's actually how they're going to use them? Like, what if they get a little more creative with
did you see what John Rahm said?
Up and comer? No, I did not. What did he say?
All right. So John Rahm said he hopes that the tournament directors use them in the right way and rewarding guys that are playing well that just missed. That's the way he would like it to be used. And I tend to agree with him. And like that. But on your side of the coin, how do you kind of turn down an Adam Scott? Maybe he's not informed, but hard not to, when his resume comes on your desk, it's pretty difficult to turn Adam down. And also, did you also hear what John Rahm said as well about the issues of the porta potties?
This is a very smooth segue, and just because the timing is perfect, we'll push our Ryder Cup discussion to the end of the show, because you and I have a shared iPhone note that we dump, various ideas of varying quality, I'd say, for the show. But you put one in there probably about a month ago now that just said, not enough bathrooms on the golf course. And I just want to put that on the record for all the people out there who heard John Rahm this last week beg the tour to put a porta potty on every hole. I'd just like to say, Smylie has been on this. Maybe not publicly, but I can verify privately. I have the receipts. I have the note. Smylie has been on this for a long time. And Smylie, the floor is yours. Actually, I have a question for you. Where is this coming from? Where did this come from in your brain? Was this from a player's perspective? Was this from like a broadcaster's perspective out there toting around the pack?
It's a great question. And the issue, it came from my bladder being too full too often and having to take a piss in somebody's backyard. And that happened one too many times where, it just, every single hole needs to have some type of player's bathroom on it inside the ropes. And my wife's sitting here looking at me laughing.
Well, okay, like, this is you've opened up Pandora's box here. Like, give me your best
bottles of water.
Give me your best, like, sneaky on-course pee, like in someone's yard. Like, do you have a specific memory of like, I should not be peeing here, but I cannot hold this any longer?
No, you just got to be super creative, very, very creative. I would say in anybody's backyard. I mean,
you don't have like a specific tree or course or memory.
No. It's just trying to find a spot there you just don't get caught, because obviously you'll get fined like crazy if the tour caught you. But put more bathrooms, we wouldn't have this issue. And yeah, so Rahm, if Rahm wants to run for president, I'll be his vice president, and we can run on that campaign. I think it's it's a big deal.
Speaking of tour rules, did you catch us today at the beginning of the broadcast where after, by the way,
no, I didn't catch the beginning of the broadcast because DirecTV,
that's right.
DirecTV, I can't watch CBS on my TV because of Nexstar and DirecTV's issues. So
okay, shame on you, DirecTV. Shame on you, Nexstar. Fix this immediately.
And the DirecTV
will not stand for it. You can borrow my YouTube TV login, dude. Or actually, I probably shouldn't say that on there. I can pay for. I'm
just so frustrated with it, in the fact that it's been going. I've been able to watch golf on TV, and we're about to be a football season, and SEC's on CBS. SEC, I think it's the last year.
That's not good for you.
I think Fox is the same, but I haven't had a reason to watch Fox until football season comes on, and DirecTV responded to my tweet and said, we're going through the negotiations, and really made me feel bad about tweeting it out. It was not like the classic airline,
like, I'm really sorry. Yeah.
That was like, hey, we're really sorry for your inconvenience. It was like, they responded to somebody and said, like, cutting or leaving us and going to YouTube TV is not the answer. Like, this isn't our fault. And it was just He was like the worst
DirecTV, how about
ever.
you pay? Give me like $20 of my monthly fee back. Like I pay for your service so I can watch the golf. I can't watch the golf. Your service is materially less in value.
I don't know
like,
what.
Give me the money back.
Is.
Don't try to shame me on Twitter.
It was, and so what I sent back underneath and said, I went on YouTube and found there was a drill that Les Miles used to do with our LSU football team that I'll need to send over to you. It's called the Big Cat Drill.
Okay.
And he would call like an offense and defensive player, and they would go head to head. And it's got 10 million views on YouTube.
Oh,
and
is this like the Oklahoma drill?
Yeah.
Like Oklahoma drill. I love that.
So I sent it to DirecTV and said, hopefully this gets you fired up for football season and this expedites the process. So
wow. They flipped you into motivating them on Twitter. I mean, that was a good play by their social admin. Dang it,
they got me, didn't they?
They really got you. They really mind tricked you. Listen, I'll add you to my family on YouTube TV. We're really going on a tangent now. I once did an Oklahoma drill on a putting green during the middle of our member tournament.
Oh, that's fair. That's fine.
Yeah. It was good times. It was really, the vibes were high that day. But this was actually from the Golf Channel broadcast today, so you would not have missed this. And I don't know if you saw Tom Kim on the range warming up with his pants rolled up. Which, by the way, if you go check your Twitter feed, our social feeds, we were on this first. You've planted the seed in Tom Kim's head. Hey, the Capri look at the PGA Championship was a good one. Maybe you could run this back in the future. And he said, maybe. And you could see the wheels spinning up there thinking, me, I just might run this back. And first round of the FedEx St. Jude this week, he fired a 64 in what looked like rolled up pants Capri style. So he did it again on the range on Sunday. And then the tour officials came over and made him roll him down before he started playing today.
Oh, I missed that.
They invoked some rule. It was a real passing reference on the Golf Channel broadcast. I think it was Terry Gannon who said it. I'm not entirely sure, but
wow.
Yeah, it was like there was some rule. And I don't know if they were just kind of letting him slide for a little while because there was some debate as to whether he had to roll up on Thursday.
The joggers are put on notice right now.
That's a really good question. Where is the cutoff line? I mean, quite literally, like how many inches of skin are we allowed to see above the stock line?
This kind of goes back to high school principals with the dollar bill and the
shirts. Exactly. Because it's like, we'll let it slide for a while. Like, okay, listen, if you go like rampaging in the mud at Oak Hill, like we're not going to penalize you. Like if you tear an ankle ligament at the Open and you may or may not be rolling up your pants, a couple weeks later because you're giving your ankles relief, we'll let it slide for a round. But like, don't make this a thing, Tom, which I hate, by the way. If a grown man wants to wear capris in a tour event, let him cook.
I don't know.
I mean, come on now, man. I love it. If Sam Ryder can wear joggers, why can't Tom Kim wear capris? Let's celebrate individuality.
No, I'm with you. I don't know.
I had to, on the list of things for ranting about, rules, things of that nature, I had to get that one in the notes. So here's another item from our shared ideas doc. This was your idea, and it's one that I love, and it's one that I hope to do more of in coming weeks. So you said you proposed a snake draft, the top 5 things that make a golf day great. I just absolutely love this. So this is your proposal. So I believe you have the first pick, the draft. I'll pull up my little notes doc here of all my potential draft picks, and you lead us off, SK.
For the number 1 pick of the perfect day at a golf course, Smylie Kaufman selects the boys.
The boys. Just getting the boys together?
Yes, the boys. The gang.
I love it.
Just the crew.
Just a good. Okay, so it's more specifically defined. It's just the right mix, the right crew of guys.
Yes.
Okay. I fear that I've added a little bit too much detail to my potential picks here, so you can just cut me off if I go too in depth here. But I hold the second and third picks on this draft, and
you got second and third. Oh boy.
Yeah. So my second pick is essentially a variation on your first pick, but it's when you go into a course where have a good lunch spot. It's like a Friday and everyone got off work early. Everyone can get to the course early, and they can get there early for lunch and some drinks, and you get bonus points if you've all played the course before, and you get to talk through course strategy for lunch.
So what's your answer? What is that answer?
It's
gotta be like one. It's gotta be like one word.
Pre-round lunch and drinks with the boys.
So,
because you can't always do it. A lot of people are coming in hot. We're dads. I'm showing going all the time now. So it's pre-round lunch and drinks with the boys.
Pre-round tomfoolery. Okay.
So that's the second overall pick of the draft. Okay. Third overall pick of the draft.
I'm going to draft.
Wait, no. It's just snake draft.
You get third. Sorry.
To borrow from.
God, I hope you don't steal my pick in my head.
To borrow from our good friends, a part of my take. You got lost in the snake there for a second there, Smylie. This the third pick of this draft, 4 balls in the first fairway. Nothing better.
That's
4 balls in the first fairway. Just everyone's vibing. We're a little bouncing, a little Rory McIlroy bouncing our step, heading back to the car. It's just nothing better than seeing all 4 of them in the short stuff.
I am going to follow you up with that, and I'm going to draft music.
Oh, you stole my next one. I love this though. I love this.
Right now, my picks, just to keep the board updated, I have the boys and music. That tells you what type of situation I prefer on the golf course.
Okay. The boys, I love. So you stole my pick here. I'm just gonna add an addendum to support your pick there. Like I had on here, like you vibe with the first song on your buddy's playlist. Like the first time he hits play, you're like, yes, that's how today's gonna go. I love it. So okay, so you have the boys and music. I have pre-round lunch and drinks.
Do I get
4 balls in
another
the first fairway?
I get one more pick.
Yeah, we're snaking. We're full snaking now.
I don't in the future, I hope we don't do any more snake drafts. I was kind of thinking that it would just go back and forth, but I know what a snake draft is. So in my head, I was thinking we go back, forth, but whatever. My next pick, I'm going to take the weather.
Yeah. And
I love it. When I say the weather, I'm talking like we can't shut up about how good the weather is this day.
I love it.
It's low humidity, 75 degrees, a little crispy in the morning.
There's nothing better than
not a cloud in the sky.
Not a cloud in the sky. Like there's also nothing better than thinking it's going to be a bad weather day, and you're like, let's just hang on to the tee time. And then
that's a different vibe.
Day.
That's like an honorable mention.
That's honorable. Okay, all right. So weather, just perfect weather day. I love that. I can't disagree with that. All right, so this is the 6th pick. So I think I have 3 more picks here. I will say having a hole early with birdies. Like both guys make like you make one birdie go in the hole and you're like, oh, like that team my boat raced us today. And then like you make one right on top of them. And it's like, oh, like we came to play today. This is gonna be a good match. We're both going low. So
you're all about vibes and current golf highs right now. That's your that's your current. I feel that. That's fine.
I mean, I probably in all likelihood should care less about the results, but it's just, they're just not I'm too competitive. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, your competitive nature's coming out. I got too much Bama in me. Currently I have the boys, music, and weather drafted. So mine's a little more on just like, I just like to have a good day, I guess.
Okay. So the next one I'm going to go with is, God, there's so many on here that I could draft. I already kind of went food. I wanted to say, should I go with this one? It's too good to pass up. I'm going to say if the course serves a good and preferably signature hot dog.
Yeah.
Like
good pick.
So
good pick.
I grew up
getting a glizzy in the 4th round is a great
value. Great value.
God,
in the 4th round.
I honestly thought I was going to be able to
sneak a glizzy
sneak that in there. And when you say like a signature thing, I'm going to kind of throw this in there.
Please do.
Because you kind of insinuated on that. So when I love it when a golf course has like what you're talking about, like a signature thing at the turn. Like Olympic Club is the ham dog.
Yep.
That's their big thing.
Yep.
And I have written on my list pimento cheese. We have that at Shoal Creek, and we get to the turn, and you're just looking forward to that signature item at that club. So I know you're going with the hot dog, but I think you picked all of those things that we just kind of talked about.
I'm glad you opened it up a little bit, because so when I think of
the umbrella,
I thank you for extending, because there are a couple signature items that I just like to give a little honorable mention to at some various places. So like the hot dog I'm thinking of in my mind, I grew up playing at a course in Fresno, California called Fort Washington, and they would get the hot dog and they'd toast the bun and they cut it lengthwise, and they take the dog and they put it on the grill, so you get the char lines on the inside of the dog, but it's also open in the middle, so you can load it up with condiments, onions, the works. That was like maybe the best hot dog I've ever had in my entire life. But I'd also like to give a couple honorable mentions to the pub cheese and the Ritz crackers at Seminole, and the ginger snaps and the peanut butter at Seminole.
Yep.
And then they used to serve Gatorade in a can there. I mean, there was like no
we
better
got Gatorade in a can at Shoal.
I mean, that's
I used
tier.
When I used to practice at Shoal for 2 or 3 years, when it was just super hot and I wasn't playing a ton in events, I would cut a hole in the can and shotgun a Gatorade can. I was just like, this is like, why not? This is cool.
It's honestly, why does Gatorade taste so much better out of a can? I can't explain why, but it just does. There's just nothing more refreshing.
It's the opposite of Coke, like Coke is way better in a bottle.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. So and the last one, just the transfusion slushy at Eagle Point, Wilmington, North Carolina. And and if you airstrike that thing.
Yeah. Like, I think we're gonna keep it in the food category here, because you can't just take claim on all of these things.
I'm just gonna start claiming everything, and then I'm just getting like this. I got like compensation draft picks, and I'm just
that was
using
a great pick, but you don't get to have everything.
I'm done, and the 8th and 9th picks are yours, Smylie.
I don't even know, like, how are you gonna label that? Just like signature item,
signature food and drink. But you said I can't. A signature food item. I'm gonna say signature glizzy, and let the people figure that one out on their own.
I think signature. I'll give you signature food or drink. I'll give you that. That's fine. Okay. I'll give it to you.
All right, perfect.
So shout out. What it was, the Eagle Point. Somebody said
Eagle Point on the transfusion slushy.
Yeah,
primo.
Nice.
And air striking those things. I mean, now I'm really stepping outside of my boundary. Like I had on here like I'm not going to draft it, but I'm just going to mention it. Like when you're playing bad, a well-timed airstrike that reverses your fortunes is like one of the great all-time moves in match play. Like especially if you play better on the hole right after the drinks arrive. You're like, wow. Like you look at your buddy in the car after the hole and you're like, good airstrike, dude. Good call on that airstrike.
Yeah, that's a good point. So is it my pick yet?
It is. It's now your pick. I think I picked like 7 things there, but you can go ahead with your next two.
This one actually just came to my head, so this is actually great. This is a one on the fly. I am going to take. Is this my 4th pick?
This is your 3rd pick. No, this is your 4th pick. This is your 4th. This is your 4th and 5th pick right here.
4th and 5th. Okay. Yeah. For the 4th pick, I'm going to draft the breakfast ball.
Oh, love it. Nothing better. Nothing better.
It's honestly could have gone higher.
It could have maybe should have gone higher. Can I tell you as a dog lover, not to tug at the people's heartstrings a little bit too much here, but we had a really poignant moment this weekend at Diamond Creek. My buddy had a lab that recently passed away, and he had a little golf ball with his lab's name's Chester, like his picture on the golf ball. And so the first tee, he just blows it into like the long grass on the right. And he just turns to our buddies like, that was so fitting. I just like laid him to rest out here at Diamond Creek. Such a beautiful place out here. It was I mentioned it was the greatest breakfast ball of all time. We're like, hey, tee off the first, just tee up another one. You just did a really poignant thing for your dog. So apologies if people are out there tearing up a little bit, wherever you're listening, but I just had to mention that. It's the greatest breakfast ball of all time.
I tell you what, though, breakfast balls, when you have it, still, I think the most nervous I've ever been in my career is when I've hit my first breakfast ball or my first ball out of play. And now my first tee shot, which is now, it's still my first shot of the day. it's just become that much worse. It's like I can't lose this ball because now I have to hit 3 tee shots on the first tee with a bunch of people around. So we know that breakfast balls are implemented. You would rather just maybe pull one into the rough and give that opportunity to hit the fairway. But that's like an asterisk on the breakfast ball. It's one of my favorite things to have in my back pocket, but also can be a nightmare when you're standing over that one. You're thinking, God, cannot hit this one out of play either.
Yeah, it can be a little nervy, but it's also like pulling a ball OB or slicing an OB, depending on your course setup on the first hole, and you can't reload is like one of the more, you're like, there's nothing more deflating than arriving at the course and you have all the juice, energy. I'm so excited to play golf today. And it's like, all right, bud, just stick another tee in the ground. You're hitting 3. He's like, I'm going to play awful today. This is terrible. And my whole day's ruined. So I think I would actually love to see, like, we try out different formats on the PGA Tour. There's like a Stableford event. Let's do an event where there are breakfast balls.
Yeah. Big
I kind of love that.
Ball.
I kind of love that, Improve prayer morale.
Yeah. I don't hit a ton of balls now before rounds. Sometimes I won't even hit any. So just have that breakfast ball and be,
come on,
and
man.
You just have that excuse like, oh man, that hurt so bad, even though it didn't hurt that bad. You're just like, man, I just said that felt terrible.
Sometimes I'll hit a breakfast ball after I go to the range. Just because I feel like it. So all right. So you have this is your 5th and final pick coming up right here.
Between 2 things and one, I think I'm going to lean into one that it really does get me so excited. I start thinking about it on like the 15th hole. And this is strictly for a morning tee time when you tee off in the morning and you finish the day up and on the 15th hole, you say to yourself, I am 1,000% going to get a toasted club sandwich with French fries and honey mustard.
Wow. I can almost taste it right now.
I mean, once you just think about the crunch of the club sandwich and it's nice and toasty, you tell them to take the middle layer out of that club and the French fries and the honey mustard are just going to be popping off. I mean, what a pick at 5. God,
I love because you can feel that imagery in your brain of swinging open the doors into the sort of the club room wherever your country club serves food and drink. And
don't need a menu. Table. All good.
Don't even
need a menu.
Take your hat off, drop it down the table, loosen up the golf shoes a little bit, kind of sit back, do a nice stretch. I'll have the club with some fries and an ice cold beverage of my choosing. And
Toasted club.
Like it. Toasted club. Golly, that's a high value pick to get that the last one to draft. And you know what? I'm just this is perfect because we're doing like sort of a thematic. We're taking you through an entire day of golf. And so again, depending on the nature of your day, what you're hoping to do, especially if you're on like a golf trip or you're in a really cool place, there's nothing like a good post-round shower at a place with great water pressure.
Good pick.
And just bring it home.
That's like a good pick. Golly, how did I not even think about that?
Deep Dale,
that's a hurricane. That is a hurricane.
It's unbelievable. You're like, this can't be. I might get washed down the drain here, but it is so good. And I'll say, shout out to Diamond Creek. They have great water pressure there too. But there's nothing like because
it's insane.
It does not matter. You could play the best round of your life or the worst round of your life. You step in that shower and you've got good water pressure. You're either standing there thinking about all the great shots you hit that day and reliving and just basking in the glory and just thinking about you're about to go out and go eat that toasted club sandwich and go have that ice cold beer and talk to all your buddies about your exploits, or you're just washing it all away. Doesn't matter that I snap hooked it on the 17th hole or 4-jacked the 18th green because it's all gone now. Now I get to go drink and hang out and I feel clean. This is a great shower. So
you're exactly right. And that had to be, we would have caught a lot of grief in the chat if we didn't pick good water pressure showers. A great pick. And just an honorable mention. Do you have one?
You lead us off here. I mean, I guess if we're if we are snaking, I'll throw in my honorable mention here.
Okay.
I just have on here a chip in. Nothing reverses fortunes like a chip in. Like it's like you're in a bad position. You're about to make a bad score. Now you just made a good score. It's just like it's like just a little bonus. Like, oh hey, I just shaved off probably 2 shots off my score.
I just had 2 that came up in my head, but I'm going to go with what I wrote down. The first tee time.
Oh yeah. Do sweepers. Do
Do
sweepers
sweepers.
club. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Golly, this is a good list. So let me just recap here for you. Okay. So we have Smylie first pick of the draft, the boys. My second pick of the draft.
Can you run through my list and then yours so it's
good.
more
That's
organized
good.
in my
Split
head?
'em. So you took the boys, music, perfect weather, breakfast ball, toasted club sandwich.
That's a heck of a list.
With the first tee time as an honorable mention. I took pre-round lunch and drink with the boys, 4 balls in the first fairway, having a hole with birdies early on, signature food and drink, mainly a glizzy, toasted glizzy, and I took a good water pressure shower with chip.
I think you got better as you went on. I honestly think you might actually be the type of guy who finds steals later on in drafts. So when it comes to fantasy football, I know that you're the guy that's gonna pick better later because you age like a fine wine there.
It's a pretty eclectic list. Like I'm not like the top charting, group that like has all the hit singles on the top 100. I'm more of like an indie group that's kind of an acquired taste, but you get familiar with my work and like you'd never imagine the depth of this guy's library. That's kind of how I feel about my roster here.
That was great, dude. We got to do more of these. That was fun.
We can and we should and we probably will. So that was fun. So that's our little draft there. We just have a couple clerical items. You talked a little bit about your kind of your tinkering with your lie angles and your golf weekend and your power washing weekend as well. I just got to give you just the report on Diamond Creek. We touched on various points.
JT Poston has told me 1,000 times I need to go up there and check it out.
And I saw I think maybe his coach at one point or at some point, John McNeely up there this weekend. Mm-hmm. A buddy of mine is a member there and he takes us up every year because we're on the same men's league team at Hope Valley. And so it's like a guys trip that we do with our teammates. And it is, I forget how good this place is until I pull through the gates again, like the next year. And I'm like, this is one of my favorite. Like I get everyone has different rankings. I'm not saying this is like my top 5 rankings, but like I would say like of my favorite overall courses to spend time at. And I'm talking about like, is the course fun? Is it memorable? Do I like the members and the people I meet there? Does it have cool amenities? Like my top 5 are Seminole, Cypress, Pine Valley, Diamond Creek, Tobacco Road. Like
I've never played Tobacco.
Tobacco Road I picked strictly because it is like playing golf in a video game. It's mind-bending, doesn't make any sense. But I can vividly, I can walk you through every detail of every one of those holes right now because it's just such a wild place. Now, and that's not a private club; it's a public, but it's like an hour from my house, and I try to get over there as much as I can. But I mean, Diamond Creek is really, really, really cool place. If you ever get the chance to go, you should go. So Friday we were all the way back, shot a 74, 3 birdies. Making everything. I texted you. I'm like, I think I fixed it, Smylie. Like the putting's good. My brain is unbroken and we're back. And then Saturday shot a 38 on the front with a birdie and things were, pretty good. And then I just completely melted down the back 9. Fired off a little cool 45 to finish with an 83, four jack the 17th green. So anytime you can do that, you got to take the opportunity to, and just really just finish the trip. And anytime you can just play as bad as you possibly can and shoot a 45 on the back 9 when you're playing Pine Valley 3 days later, you got to go ahead and take the opportunity to do it. So I would say I pushed probably every putt I hit on the back 9. I pushed, which was infuriating. And I would say the broomstick meter is probably at a 7 out of 10 right now.
We are hammering the button, high alert. We're about to order a broomstick.
It's my only play here, but that's
it's not even. It's the only option.
it's the only option. I can't be reasoned with. I need a broomstick and I need it right now. So fun golf weekend. I not necessarily need to go into as much depth that we have in the past, but Diamond Creek was a sick place. We should go play up there sometime. Yeah. Will is offering invitations. Close.
Yeah, it's just hard to get to.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I have no.
Where do you even fly into?
That's a good question. They have a helicopter you can take.
Yeah.
Great expense.
I'll get right on that.
You'd probably fly into Charlotte.
Okay.
Probably fly into Charlotte, and it's probably like an hour and a half from there, I bet.
No,
it's not terrible. I'll come pick you up. I'll come pick you up on the way.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so there we go. Diamond Creek, that's that. Let's move on, of course, to a brief preview of the BMW Championship, the second FedEx Cup playoff event that's coming up this weekend. We kind of noted this at the top. Rahm, Scheffler, McIlroy remain the same at the top. Those are the top three in the standings. Lucas Glover jumps 45 spots up to fourth. Patrick Cantlay jumps 8 spots up to fifth. Tommy Fleetwood jumps 16 spots up to 10th. Question I have for you is, and you might need to pull up, the projected FedEx Cup standings here to look at this and kind of give a response on this. But we saw Cam Davis this last week jump 17 spots to 45th place. We saw Hideki Matsuyama jump 10 spots up to 47th place, get into that top 50. Who in that 31 to 50 range do you like this week to make a big jump into the top 30 and qualify for the Tour Championship?
Well, I think the guy who probably needs it the most would be Cameron Young. I think that would be a big statement, I think, on his just ability to do it in crunch time and do it this time of the year. I think that would be big for him. I believe, didn't Sahith come very close to making it last year at the Tour Championship too? Like missing out. He's 31 right now. Where did he finish last year?
That's a good question. For some reason, I feel like he was. Yeah.
I think he missed out by it. I think he missed by 1 or 2.
No. He made it. He made it last year.
He did make it. Okay, great.
He was 28th. He's finished 28th. He was.
He was close. I remember that. Yeah. All right. I knew he was like right on the bubble. But
that's right. He was. I mean, I don't know where his starting strokes were, but Scott Stallings finished 29th. He was 28th. Will Zalatoris, of course, would have been the 30th player, but had to withdraw because of the back injury.
All right, so who sticks out? I think Lee Hodges is playing some really good golf right now. When he's dialed in tee to green and that putter's going, he just seems like he's kind of that same flavor of Lucas Glover, where it just feels like he's going to be up around the lead every week. And then Ben Ott, he's been playing great too. Says he moved down 1 from last week, so didn't get it going, but he just seems like he's been having a great year. So those are a couple of guys that just kind of jump out. But you mentioned Cam Davis is a guy that's made a big jump. So let's see if he keeps it riding. Well,
and you noted Cam Young, and we kind of briefly touched on this earlier, but want to kind of get into it a little bit further here. But let's just talk Ryder Cup a little bit, because this is the last event that counts for the sort of the points qualification system for the American team. And so my rough math has Cantlay in third, leapfrogged Brian Harman, Brooks Koepka, and Xander Schauffele this week. So that remains, I believe, your top 6 of automatic qualifiers. So unless something crazy happens this next week, those guys should all be in. I have Lucas Glover in 16th, which is right behind Denny McCarthy and ahead of Kurt Kitayama, Harris English, and Tony Finau. I'd have to go back and look and calculate. I mean, I think he'd almost have to win again this week to get in as an auto qualifier, but it would take a lot. So just on the Ryder Cup front, let's start with Cam Young first, because listen, I love Freddie Couples. Can we ask for a retraction of the Cam Young pick that he issued on his show? I mean, it doesn't feel like a good one to use right now.
No. All right. So here's the thing with my Cam Young deal is he had a great year last year. He's been inconsistent this year, but I've had a chance to watch him play, and his talent is undeniable. He's one of the best players in the world as far as just overall talent and ability to hit a golf ball. It's that good. So when you put him out on your lineup and he shows up, he is more talented than every other player on the other team, except for when you take maybe Rory, Rahm, and maybe Hovland. But other than that, man, Cam Young's talent is as good as anyone's in the world. So that's where that sentiment comes from with Freddie Couples. It's like, just get him there and watch him go. But I like you. He's been inconsistent this year. He didn't necessarily have a great President's Cup, didn't putt it well at the President's Cup. And when Zach Johnson's looking at his team. I guarantee you he's just going to be, when it comes down to those last picks that he's trying to figure out, I think he's going to lean on who's going to pair well with guys and who fits the golf course. And I don't know anything about the golf course besides it's hilly. I don't know if it favors a bomber. I don't know if it favors guys that hit the fairway. Cam Young can do both. So it's a question that I know that the stats team for the USA is probably just continues to run all these different algorithms to try to figure out who the best fit is and who pairs best with who. But if I'm Justin, I'm kind of liking, I just don't see Zach Johnson. If it comes down picking between Lucas Glover and him, I just don't see him not taking JT.
Well, so that's on the Cam Young piece. Like maybe I'm being a little unfair there because really the debate is, are you picking on talent, or I guess maybe there are three kind of categories, right? Are you picking on talent? Are you picking on past results, which is like the Justin Thomas argument, or are you picking on current form, which is the Lucas Glover argument? So you just kind of answered it there a little bit. It's like, do you?
Good question.
So if you're still putting JT on the team, would you consider a pick for Lucas over another one of those guys we floated as the last three? And I think most recently we talked about maybe Ricky or Sam Burns being some of those picks, if indeed Spieth, Homa, and Young get the other three picks.
So if the U.S. goes on to lose the Ryder Cup, Zach Johnson's going to get criticized regardless of what happens. But really, he's going to get criticized if he leaves some of the best players in the world at home. So I know Justin Thomas has not had the year to necessarily be in current form to be maybe one of the picks when you kind of look at everybody else's resume this year and what they've done versus what JT has done. But it's going to come down to, man, how do you leave him at home and watch the other team get the job done and wonder what Justin Thomas could have done? And that's kind of where my belief in this is that he's been your best player. He's been the rock. It's similar to years where Sergio Garcia and Ian Poulter have been on the outside and they just said, you know what? Even though this guy's had a great year, whoever that European Tour player might have been, we're taking Ian Poulter just because we know what he can do. And we know he can handle this moment in the Ryder Cup. So that's going to be the big thing, I don't envy being Zach. I'll say it 1,000 times. I don't envy being Zach this year. This is a terrible year to be a Ryder Cup captain for the fact that picking his team, he's going to be highly criticized who his lineup is. It's not just cut and dry like it has been the last couple of years.
That's a really good point. And I think that's one that he is in a little bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Like all the noise we're hearing right now is if you pick JT and you lose, people are going to grill you for picking a guy that wasn't in form. But what if you pick Lucas Glover and you lose? I mean, I think you'll still get the same volume from the other side of people saying, how could you leave a guy that's been so successful in this format at home?
It'll be worse.
And I think you can almost get too cute there. And I'm not advocating against a Lucas Glover. I mean, he's in red hot form, and I think he could make a really great addition to a team. But there is an element of like getting a little bit too cute with those last few picks, and then showing up on a Sunday and you got a singles match, and you're like, wait, why do we not have Justin Thomas here to play in a format that he's absolutely dominated in? Every time we've done this. So I think that's. Now you said something really interesting there about a few minutes ago, where you're talking about the most talented players on the team or on each of those teams. Is it the case that, I mean, I guess Scottie Scheffler's in the conversation, but I want to ask you two things. Do you think the Europeans have the three most talented players out of the entire bunch? And where do you think Scottie Scheffler fits in terms of talent alongside McIlroy, Rahm, and Hovland?
Well, I mean, they're all in the same bubble, right? That's you float, a lot of the US guys in that same bubble as well. When I talk about overall talent, just the intangible superpowers that these guys have, like Cam Young has legitimate superpowers. He can hit it further than anybody in the world when he wants to. And he can shape shots left, right, left, and he can change trajectories, Tiger Woods-esque. And so he can do things with the golf ball that other guys can't. And that's when I'm talking about when I refer to talent. But that doesn't mean a guy, for instance, down the list, like Russell Henley, dude, he's one of the straightest hitters on tour right now. He hits more greens, he hits more fairways than anybody. He would be one heck of a partner for somebody in this format. We know he's a guy that played basketball all the way through high school, as an all-state player. He would be somebody that would be a great teammate in that room, but we don't know what Zach's looking for. Mm-hmm. And is he going to go for like the pure guys who have, proven it time and time again, like JT, Tony Finau, and then an up and comer talent like Cam Young, Sam Burns? Do you go with the guys that are undeniably really good at golf, but not necessarily in form? Or do you go with someone like Lucas Glover, Russell Henley, who are unreal ball strikers, but they don't have the experience? And if you end up going out on a limb and picking guys that don't have experience, and he already has two guys in his room, in Brian Harman and Wyndham Clark, who haven't been on a team